I shouldn't have taken that last turn. You know that feeling when the air itself feels wrong? When every instinct screams at you to stop, to turn around, but something, stubbornness, pride, curiosity pushes you on. That's what I felt the night I found the hotel. Or maybe it found me. My name's Alex Mercer. I run a YouTube channel called Forgotten Paths, Urbex, Abandoned Places, Local Legends. 40,000 subscribers. Not big, but enough to matter. Enough to make me risk more than I should for footage. But that night wasn't about views. That night felt like stepping off the edge of the world. It started as a normal shoot, an abandoned truck stop out past Highway 17. Empty diner, old neon signs, broken pumps. The kind of place that smells rust and mildew and old regrets. I filmed B-roll, narrated into the mic, tried to summon my usual energy. Around 2 a.m., I decided to wrap it up and drive home. The highway was empty, my only companions the hum of tires and the occasional whisper of wind across the asphalt. And then I saw it. A glow ahead. Not headlights, something softer. Yellowish, like dusty lamps behind old curtains. My chest tightened. There shouldn't have been anything out here. I'd checked the maps. But there it stood. A hotel. 3 stories, maybe 4. Victorian style. With rotting balconies, cracked windows, and a weathered sign whose letters were too faded to read. But the lights were on. It was absurd. In the middle of nowhere, a lit hotel at 3 in the morning. Every instinct told me to keep driving, but every urbex bone in my body buzzed at the chance. I parked, grabbed my camera, and walked toward it, heart pounding. As I got closer, I saw the entrance. Tall, double doors, one slightly ajar as if waiting for me. The air felt heavy, electric. The camera in my hand felt strangely light, like I wasn't really holding it. I stepped in. The lobby smelled of old wood and something sweet, almost cloying like rotting flowers. A grand staircase curled upward into darkness, and cracked marble tile stretched out underfoot. Behind the front desk, a guest book lay open, its pages yellowed and brittle. The strangest thing? Soft music. Faint, from somewhere deeper inside. A piano playing a slow, mournful tune, just out of sight. I lifted my camera and started recording, whispering commentary for the video. My voice trembled. I couldn't help it. Okay, guys, this is insane. There's power here. Lights on the ground floor. And music? What the hell? As I panned around, the camera's night mode picked up movement, or thought it did. A blur at the edge of the frame. When I turned, there was nothing. I should have left, but the pull was too strong. I followed the music past the lobby into a lounge area. Broken chairs, shredded velvet cushions, a grand piano in the corner. Its lid was closed, and still the music played. That's when the air grew cold, sharp and sudden, like stepping into a freezer. My breath fogged before me. I backed away, heart pounding louder. I thought it would drown out everything else. Then the music stopped. I whispered into the mic, "If there's anyone here, I mean no harm. I'm just exploring." Silence. I kept moving. Deeper into the first floor, I found a dining room, its table still set with dusty silverware and plates stained with black mold. Cobwebs draped everything like funereal veils. At the far end stood a mirror taller than me, its glass cracked into a web of jagged lines. For reasons I can't explain, I raised my camera to film my reflection, and saw someone standing behind me. I spun around, empty. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. The hotel felt alive, as if it were watching me, breathing around me. I made my way back to the lobby, glancing at the guest book. The names were smudged, impossible to read, but one date was clear.
July 1901. Over a century ago. I told myself it was part of the charm, part of what made the footage compelling, but part of me, deep inside, knew it wasn't right. Just then, a creak from the staircase, like someone shifting their weight. I turned, camera up. The stairs spiraled into darkness, lit only by a single flickering bulb overhead. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "Okay, guys, I'm going up." Each step on the grand staircase groaned under my weight, and the railing felt strangely warm, as if touched just moments ago. My flashlight barely cut through the gloom, revealing peeling wallpaper patterned with faded roses. Halfway up, I paused to catch my breath and heard it. A whisper. Faint. Female. Impossible to understand. It sent a shock of adrenaline through me. I spun around, the beam of light darting over the empty stairs below. Nothing. At the top, the corridor stretched out in both directions, lined with numbered doors. The air smelled of mildew and something metallic, like rust or blood. I picked the nearest door, 203, and turned the knob. It opened with a sigh. Inside, the room was frozen in time. A bed with its sheets yellowed and torn, an old wardrobe missing its doors, and a cracked porcelain basin under a dusty mirror. As I panned my camera, something caught my eye in the mirror. Faint letters traced into the grime, as if by a finger. I stepped closer, my breath loud in my ears. It said, "Leave now." The letters were fresh, the streaks clean compared to the rest of the dirt. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the camera. I backed out, heart pounding, whispering, "Okay, okay, okay, maybe this was a mistake." But curiosity is a cruel master. The next room beckoned. Room 205 had its door ajar. Inside, the same decay, but also a child's doll lying on the floor, its porcelain face cracked, one glass eye missing. When I stepped closer, the remaining eye rolled and stared directly at me. I stumbled back, gasping, the camera jerking wildly. The doll had moved, I was sure of it. But when I forced myself to look again, it lay still, blank and harmless. My skin crawled with invisible insects. The hallway seemed longer than before, stretching into darkness without end. I felt watched, every hair on my neck standing up. My breaths came ragged, loud in the suffocating silence. Then the faint piano music returned. But now it sounded wrong, slower, broken, notes bending out of tune. I turned back toward the staircase ready to run, but something stopped me. At the far end of the hallway stood a figure. Dressed in tattered clothes, skin pale as bone, face hidden in shadow. I raised the camera, whispering, Who are you?" No answer. The figure lifted an arm, slow, deliberate, and pointed at me. The lights overhead flickered violently, and for a split second, I saw its face. It wore my face, twisted, rotten, eyeless sockets staring back. The camera slipped from my trembling hands and crashed to the floor. In that heartbeat, the figure vanished, leaving only darkness and the echo of my own panic breathing. I grabbed the camera, the lens cracked but still recording, and ran. Down the hall, down the stairs, through the lobby. The piano music twisted into laughter, soft, mocking, impossible to locate. At the door, I turned back, breathless. In the guest book, a fresh line of writing had appeared. "Welcome back." My hand froze on the handle. A memory, sharp and disorienting, flashed through me. Standing in this lobby as a child, holding someone's hand. A woman's voice whispering, "This is home now." I stumbled outside into the night, heart drumming like a war drum. I stepped into the cold night air, lungs burning, sweat chilling fast against my skin. But as I looked around, my heart dropped. The world outside the hotel wasn't the same. The road leading away from the hotel was gone, swallowed by an impossible black fog. The trees that had lined the driveway twisted skyward like skeletal hands, their branches writhing slowly, impossibly, as if alive. Behind me, the front doors of the hotel slammed shut, the echo rolling across the empty yard. My camera picked up the thud, the only proof this wasn't my imagination. I tried my phone again. No signal. The battery dropped to 2%, then died without warning. Total silence wrapped around me, thick as the fog now, creeping closer, swallowing the path, the trees, everything. Only the hotel stood clear behind me, windows dark, yet something moved within them. Silhouettes crossing from room to room, gliding rather than walking. Panic clawed at my throat, but curiosity still dug its hooks deeper. I whispered to myself, "Just get back inside, find another way out." And with shaking legs, I turned and pulled the heavy doors open. The lobby was no longer empty. Rows of suitcases lined the floor, old, worn, with name tags faded and peeling. As I stepped closer, I saw something worse. Each tag bore my name, over and over, sometimes misspelled, sometimes in childish handwriting. I picked one up. It felt warm, almost alive, vibrating faintly. When I opened it, it held nothing but ash and a cracked photo of myself as a child, half burned away. A whisper, barely audible, came from the pile of luggage. "Don't remember. Don't remember."
The piano music rose again, clearer, calling me deeper into the hotel. The melody was haunting, familiar, like a lullaby long forgotten. Past the lobby, I followed it down a corridor lined with faded photographs. All the faces had been scratched out, except one, my own, as a young boy, standing in front of this very hotel. A memory surfaced, unbidden, laughter echoing in the hall, the smell of burning candles, a woman's hand ruffling my hair. But the memory slipped away as quickly as it came, leaving only the cold sweat dripping down my back. At the end of the corridor, a set of double doors waited. The music grew louder behind them. I pushed them open. The ballroom, once grand, lay rotting and broken. Chandeliers hung at odd angles, shards of glass crunching underfoot. And in the center stood an old piano, its black paint blistered and flaking. Seated at the keys, back turned to me, was a woman in a tattered dress. Her hair hung in lifeless strands, skin gray and papery. Yet her fingers danced across the keys, playing the twisted lullaby that had haunted me since I arrived. I forced myself closer, camera raised. Who are you?" I croaked. She stopped playing. Silence swallowed the ballroom. Slowly, impossibly slowly, she turned her head.
Where her face should have been, there was nothing but a smooth, pale surface, blank, like a porcelain mask with no features. Yet somehow I felt her watching me, staring through me. Then, in a rasp like dry leaves, she whispered, "You should have never come back." The chandeliers overhead began to sway, dust pouring down like snow. The piano let out a single discordant note that echoed forever. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the camera again. The woman rose from the bench, her movement unnatural, as if pulled by invisible strings. She raised a hand, pointing behind me. I turned and saw a mirror, tall and cracked, leaning against the far wall. In its reflection, I wasn't alone. Dozens of figures stood behind me, all dressed in funeral black, their faces blurred and wrong, heads tilting in silent judgment. Panic drowned out every thought. I bolted from the ballroom, the woman's whisper chasing me down the hall. "You can't leave. You belong here." Corridors twisted, changing behind me. Staircases led to brick walls. Windows showed only swirling fog. Every turn brought me back to the lobby. The guest book lay open on the counter again. Fresh words appeared, as if written by an unseen hand. "Stay forever."
My heartbeat was a hammer in my chest. The walls pulsed and breathed, the whole building alive and hungry. I had to get out. Any way, any price. I smashed through a side door, splinters slicing my arm. Outside, the fog had receded, just enough to show a narrow, overgrown path winding toward the woods. The moment my feet hit the path, the hotel let out a groan, like something waking from a deep sleep. I didn't dare look back. Branches whipped my face, roots caught my ankles, but I kept running, lungs on fire. Somewhere behind, footsteps echoed mine, always a step behind, never catching up. Finally, I burst into a clearing. Moonlight spilled onto ancient gravestones, crooked and sinking into the earth. At the center stood a single fresh grave, soil still turned. A crude wooden marker bore 2 words burned into the wood. My name. My blood froze. The date beneath was today. Before I could move, a cold hand gripped my shoulder. I spun around, and the last thing I saw before everything went black was the blank face of the woman from the ballroom, inches from mine. When I awoke, I was lying on the hotel steps. The dawn light painted everything gray and dead. My camera, cracked and battered, lay beside me. I checked the footage, hands trembling. Every clip was corrupted, overexposed, nothing but static. Except for the very last frame. My own face, eyes wide in horror, and behind me, dozens of featureless figures reaching for me. The sun rose, weak and colorless, as if drained by the nightmare of the night before. My breath fogged in the cold air, but I couldn't feel the chill. All I could feel was dread, heavy, sticky, clinging to my skin. The hotel loomed behind me, windows dark and watching. I should have run. I should have left this cursed place far behind. Instead, I went back inside. The lobby felt different in daylight, more alive, more ruined. Cobwebs draped the broken chandeliers, dust turned the floor into a gray shroud. The piano stood silent, keys yellowed like old teeth. But the guest book still lay open on the counter, and new words had appeared overnight. Welcome back, Ethan.
My name written in the same spidery hand. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but something stronger kept me rooted, a gnawing need to know why. Why did this place know my name? Why had it shown me those impossible memories? And why did I remember the woman's touch, though I had never seen her before? I picked up the camera. The lens was cracked, but it still turned on. Through the viewfinder, the hotel looked different. Colors deeper, shadows thicker, as if the camera could see what my eyes couldn't. Driven by fear and fascination, I followed the corridors deeper into the hotel. The deeper I went, the more the building seemed to remember itself. Wallpaper brightening, light fixtures flickering back to life. On the second floor, the hallway was lined with doors, each bearing tarnished brass numbers. Room 213 caught my eye. The number was scratched over and over, as if someone had tried to erase it, but failed. I tried the handle. It turned under my hand. The room smelled of stale flowers and old secrets. The curtains were drawn, but thin light bled around the edges, carving long shadows across the faded carpet. An old vanity stood against the far wall. Its mirror was cracked, but in its reflection, the room wasn't empty. A figure sat on the bed, a man in a suit decades out of style, his face turned away. My breath caught. "Hello," I whispered. The man didn't move. I took a slow step forward. The boards creaked under my weight. At the sound, the man's head turned. His eyes were hollow, empty sockets, yet somehow still seeing me. His mouth opened, but no words came, only a low choking sound, wet and gurgling. Through the camera, the man looked sharper, more real, his ruined face twisted in terror. He raised a shaking hand, pointing to the vanity. Heart hammering, I approached the vanity. Dust caked its surface, but something lay half buried, a photograph, edges burned and brittle. I lifted it gently. In the photo stood a woman, the same woman from the ballroom, her face still a smooth mask, and beside her a boy of 7 or 8. The boy was me. The photograph slipped from my fingers. When I looked back, the man on the bed was gone. Only the deep imprint of his weight remained in the dust. I backed out of the room, pulse roaring in my ears. The hallway beyond had changed. Doors lined both sides endlessly, stretching farther than the building should allow. A distant sound echoed between the walls. The piano, playing again. Drawn by the melody, I walked for what felt like hours. Dust gave way to clean carpet. The walls gleamed with fresh paint. Chandeliers glowed warm above me. And voices drifted from ahead. Muffled laughter, footsteps, the low hum of conversation. I rounded the corner and stepped into the past. The ballroom was alive, filled with elegantly dressed guests dancing under golden light. Waiters moved between tables, trays balanced expertly. No one seemed to see me. Yet when I raised the camera, every head turned in unison, faces blank and featureless. The music faltered, guests froze, their bodies locked in grotesque mid-motion. The woman at the piano stood slowly. This time, when she turned, her face bore features, my mother's face, pale and cold. "Ethan, why did you come back?"
I don't remember, I stammered. She raised a hand, and the room darkened. The guests crumbled into ash where they stood, falling silently to the floor. Only she remained, watching me with sad, accusing eyes. "You left us," she said. "I don't remember," I repeated, tears burning my eyes. "You will," she promised, "and then you'll never leave again." The ballroom fell away into darkness. I felt myself falling, spinning through cold emptiness. When I landed, I lay on cracked tiles. Weak daylight streamed through broken windows high above. I was in the hotel's basement. The air was damp, thick with mold. Rusted pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping water into dark pools. In the corner stood a door, its wood rotted and blackened. Carved into it, barely legible, was a single word: family. Hands trembling, I pushed it open. Inside was a small room. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with dusty keepsakes, children's drawings, broken toys, a woman's hairbrush. A single candle flickered on a table, illuminating something pinned to the wall. Dozens of photographs. In every photo, there was a boy, me at different ages, smiling, crying, playing. And beside me always the same woman. Sometimes her face was clear, loving. Other times it was the blank mask. As I stared, memories began to surface, rising through the dark waters of my mind. A childhood spent in these walls, a promise to never leave. A night of fire and screams, running until I couldn't remember why I was running. I had been here before. I had lived here, and I had tried to forget. A sudden noise spun me around. In the doorway stood the woman, my mother, face shifting between warm familiarity and cold porcelain blankness. "You see now. This is your home, Ethan. You belong here." "I can't," I whispered. "I can't stay." "You never really left," she replied. The candlelight flared, throwing monstrous shadows across the walls. In its light, the shelves transformed. Toys became bones. Drawings turned to scraps of rotted cloth. My head pounded with memories not fully mine. Lullabies sung in the dark. Warnings never to open the wrong doors. The punishment that followed when I did. And a final terrible memory. Setting the fire, my small hands striking the match. The guilt, the horror, and the escape. "I didn't mean to," I sobbed. "I know," she whispered, "but you still belong to us." The walls closed in, the candle's flame bending toward me like a living thing. The camera slipped from my grasp, shattering on the stone floor.
In its flickering screen, I saw myself, eyes wide, skin gray, features fading into smooth nothing, becoming one of them. The woman stepped closer, her hand cold on my cheek. "It's time to remember, Ethan." As darkness claimed me, I heard the piano begin to play again, and for the first time, I remembered the melody. It was the song she sang to me when I was a child. I awoke on the cold basement floor. The air tasted of soot and ash. My breath came ragged, each inhale scraping my lungs like broken glass.
The candle had burned out, leaving nothing but a pool of hardened wax. But I wasn't alone. She stood over me, the woman from the photos, my mother, her face shifting between warmth and the smooth, eyeless mask. "You finally remembered, Ethan. Now you can stay." Panic surged in me. "I don't belong here," I rasped. She shook her head slowly, sorrow in her shifting features. "You always belonged here. You tried to run from what you are, but blood remembers." I scrambled back, my hands scraping raw against the stone floor. My fingers brushed broken glass, the shattered camera. Through the fractured lens, the room twisted, shadows crawling like living things. In its cracked screen, I saw not just myself, but another Ethan, pale, hollow-eyed, watching from behind the glass. The reflection whispered, barely audible, "You can't leave." I staggered to my feet, pushing past the woman. The basement door loomed ahead, half-rotted, hanging from rusted hinges. I ran. Corridors twisted, warping as I moved. Walls rippled like water. Doors opened and slammed on their own, mocking my escape. But I kept running. Somewhere above, I heard the piano again, slow, deliberate notes echoing through the emptiness. The melody tugged at me, pulling me back. Memories bled into my mind, a childhood spent in these halls, learning to fear what hid behind every locked door. A promise whispered by candlelight. Never leave. I burst from the basement into the lobby. The once grand hall was ruined, chandeliers shattered, marble cracked, dust thick enough to choke. But through the grime, shapes stirred, figures, pale and blank-faced, emerging from shadows. They moved silently, surrounding me. In desperation, I lifted the camera. Through its fractured eye, the figures appeared clearer. Their faces weren't blank, but forgotten. Features worn away by years of waiting. Among them, I saw myself, an older Ethan, skin ashen, eyes empty. He raised a hand, mirroring my own movement. I lowered the camera, my heart pounding. The figures stepped closer. "Stay," they whispered together, voices like wind through dead leaves. I backed away, stumbling over broken tiles, until my back hit the reception desk. Behind it lay the guest book. Its pages flipped on their own, stopping on a fresh entry. Ethan Graham, returned. The word returned bled ink across the page, letters twisting into shapes that hurt to look at. My hands trembled as I slammed the book shut. A sudden movement drew my gaze upward. At the top of the grand staircase, she stood, my mother. Her face frozen in a single expression, sadness, loss, acceptance. "You can't leave, Ethan," she called softly. "You made a promise." "I was a child," I shouted back. "I didn't understand." "But you still promised," she replied. The figures moved closer, closing the circle. Through the camera's lens, I saw them not as strangers, but family, uncles, cousins, grandparents I had long forgotten, all lost to the hotel's hunger. The realization struck like ice in my chest. This place didn't just keep them, it erased them, piece by piece. The piano's melody changed, growing darker, each note dripping like water in a cavern. A door behind the staircase creaked open. Cold air spilled into the lobby, carrying the scent of earth and stone. I ran for it. The passage led down, deeper than the basement. Walls wept moisture, stones slick beneath my hands. At the end, I found a chamber carved from the bedrock itself. A pool of black water lay at its center, still as glass. Around it, stone plinths held relics, toys, letters, fragments of bone. The air vibrated with something ancient, waiting. Drawn by terror and something darker, a need to know, I stepped closer to the pool. Its surface shimmered, showing not my reflection, but memories, the night of the fire, my escape, and the people left behind. Then, deeper memories. Children led into the dark, their faces turned blank as the hotel consumed them. My mother's voice echoed behind me. "This is where it keeps us, Ethan. Where it keeps what it takes." I turned. She stood at the chamber's entrance, candle in hand. "You ran once, but you can't run forever." I shook my head. "I won't stay."
Her face hardened, porcelain mask re-emerging. "Then you will forget again, and the hotel will start over." I realized the horror. I had fled before, but each time it had dragged me back, erasing who I was until nothing remained. And it would do so again and again. A choice lay before me: run and forget, or face what I was part of. I stepped toward the pool. Images rose from its depths, the family who had waited, the lives I had abandoned. And at the heart of it all, the hotel itself, alive, ancient, feeding on memory and fear. My mother offered the candle. "Light shows truth, but truth binds." I took it, hand trembling. Its flame flickered across the water, and the chamber revealed itself fully. Walls covered in faces, smooth and blank, carved into the stone. Each was a memory consumed. The water rippled, and in it I saw my own face, half-formed, fading at the edges. "Who am I?" I whispered. My mother's reply was almost gentle. "What's left of you, Ethan, what the hotel hasn't taken." A terrible thought dawned. Maybe I couldn't leave because part of me had never wanted to. The hotel had given me family, a place to belong, even if twisted and cruel. And part of me longed for that belonging. The candle dipped toward the water. If I let it touch, I knew I would remember everything, but I would be trapped forever, part of the hotel's living memory. If I snuffed it out, I could run, but lose myself again. Tears blurred my vision. The faces in the stone seemed to watch, waiting. "I'm sorry," I whispered. To whom, I didn't know. I plunged the candle into the pool. The chamber erupted in light. The water boiled, steam rising in twisting shapes. Memories flooded back, laughter and love, fear and betrayal, a childhood stolen by something older than stone. Faces I had forgotten pressed against my mind, each demanding to be remembered. The pain was blinding, exquisite, and when it faded, I stood, candle guttering in my hand. The hotel had not vanished. Its walls still pressed close, alive with whispers. But I remembered, all of it. My mother stood beside me, her face finally clear, no longer shifting, but human. "Welcome home, Ethan," she said softly. I wept, not in fear, but in release.
We climbed back to the lobby together. The figures watched us, no longer blank, but bearing the faces of family I once knew. I met their gaze, and they nodded, silent acceptance. Through the broken windows, dawn painted the sky with pale light. I realized I could walk away and keep the memories this time. Or I could stay, as guardian of what was left. I stepped to the doorway. Behind me, the piano played its last notes, fading into silence. I turned back once, meeting my mother's eyes. She smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "I won't forget again," I promised. And for the first time, the hotel was silent.